6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, this is 6 Minute English. I'm Georgina.
And I'm Rob.
What do you do when you're tired, Rob?
Oh, well, I go to bed.
Before that?
I clean my teeth.
But what does your body do to tell you you're tired?
Right, well, these days I just kind of fall asleep in front of the TV.
Yes, but okay, what am I doing now?
Oh, yes, hang on, yes, you set me off. Yawning. Yes, yawning is a sign that we're tired or bored.
Are you tired or bored now?
No, not particularly.
So why did you just yawn?
Well, because you did. That's the thing about yawns. They are contagious. They can spread from one person to another.
And that's what we're looking at in this programme. But first, today's question. What biological function does yawning have? Essentially, why do we yawn? Is it A, to take in more oxygen? B, to get rid of carbon dioxide from our body? C, no one really knows. What do you think, Rob?
I know this. We yawn to take in more oxygen. I'm pretty sure that's it.
OK, we'll see if you're correct at the end of the programme. John Drury is a researcher from Sussex University. On the BBC Radio 4 series All in the Mind, he spoke about yawning and why it is contagious. Which animal does he mention will also catch a yawn from its owner?
Yawning is actually a difficult case when it comes to these contagious behaviours. It is the most contagious behaviour. It is meant to be automatic. It's something that you can't stop. Dogs yawn when their owners yawn. Animals yawn to each other. It happens whether you want to or not. These kind of effects have been found for other kinds of behaviour. So really we were trying to push it as far as we could and see if there's a cognitive element to this influenced behaviour.
Which animal might yawn when its owner does?
Dogs. Dogs can catch a yawn from their owners.
Yes, yawning is a very contagious behaviour. The use of the word behaviour here is interesting. Normally, it is an uncountable noun to describe the way we act, either in a good or a bad way. We talk about, for example, dogs or children's behaviour being good or bad.
But it's also used as an uncountable noun when we're talking about a particular action that, for example, an animal makes in particular situations. These behaviours are often not conscious, but are an automatic response to a situation.
And the researchers were looking to see if there was a cognitive side to the behaviour, which means they were looking at the mental process, what is happening in the mind to make us yawn, particularly when someone else yawns. Let's listen again.
Yawning is actually a difficult case when it comes to these contagious behaviours. It is the most contagious behaviour. It is meant to be automatic. It's something that you can't stop. Dogs yawn when their owners yawn. Animals yawn to each other. It happens whether you want to or not. These kind of effects have been found for other kinds of behaviour. So really we were trying to push it as far as we could and see if there's a cognitive element to this influenced behaviour.
The research discovered that contagious yawning is connected with our social group and how close we feel to the people in it. Here's John Drury again.
So the more that you identify with the in-group target, the more likely you are to copy their behaviour. What we do when we see a behaviour is at some level we're making a judgment about whether the person exhibiting that behaviour, whether it's an emotion or a scratching behaviour or anything, is relevant. Does their behaviour indicate to us how we should behave?
So essentially, yawning is more contagious if we identify with the person who yawns first. If we feel close to and belong in the same group as the person who exhibits the behaviour, the person who does the yawning, we are likely to yawn too.
So you're less likely to yawn if a stranger yawns than if someone in your close family or circle of friends yawns.
Let's listen again.
So the more that you identify with the in-group target, the more likely you are to copy their behaviour. What we do when we see a behaviour is at some level we're making a judgment about whether the person exhibiting that behaviour, whether it's an emotion or a scratching behaviour or anything, is relevant. Does their behaviour indicate to us how we should behave?
Right, before we review the vocabulary, let's have the answer to our quiz. Why do we yawn? Is it A, to take in more oxygen, B, to get rid of carbon dioxide from our body, or C, no one really knows? Rob, what did you say?
Well, I was pretty sure it was A, to take in more oxygen.
There is, in fact, no clear biological reason for yawning that is agreed upon, so no one really knows.
We've been talking about yawning, the action of opening our mouths wide open and stretching our eardrums when tired or bored.
Yawning can also be contagious. This means it can pass from one person to another.
And a yawn can be described as a behaviour, a particular kind of automatic action in response to a particular situation.
The word cognitive is related to our mental processes, the way our minds work.
If you identify with a particular group, you feel close to that group and feel that you belong in that group.
And finally, to exhibit a behaviour is to actually do that particular behaviour. And before we all start yawning, it's time for us to go. Do join us again soon, and you can always find us online, on social media and on the BBC Learning English app. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Oh, don't do that, please, Neil. Makes my flesh creep.
Oh dear. If something makes your flesh creep, it means you feel frightened or disgusted by something. I don't know why I do it. It just feels nice.
Well, yeah, But you'll end up with arthritis when you're older, you know. Arthritis is a disease that causes pain and swelling in joints of the body.
That's an old wives' tale, Rob. And that means an old idea or belief that has no scientific support.
OK, if you say so, Professor. And since you're in a scientific mood, how about answering today's quiz question? Which type of joint can you crack? Is it A, fibrous, B, cartilaginous, or C, synovial?
OK, this professor isn't feeling too clever today. I'm going to have to take a guess and say C, synovial.
OK, well, we'll find out how smart you really are later on in the programme. Now let's listen to Greg Kavchuk, Professor of Rehabilitation Medicine at the University of Alberta. Rehabilitation means the process of helping somebody get better from an illness or injury.
We've recently been able to use some new technology through MRI imaging to see for the first time what's actually happening inside the joint when someone pops or cracks their knuckles. And because of that, we're hopeful that we'll be able to start to ask questions about why is it that some people can do this and other people can't.
What does MRI stand for?
It means magnetic resonance imaging. Hospitals use this technology to produce an image of the inside of a person's body.
So some people can't crack their knuckles. Can you, Rob?
I don't know, and I'm not about to try. But it isn't just finger knuckles that crack. You can do it with your neck, back, knees, ankles and toes.
Professor Greg Kavchuk says that comparing people who crack their knuckles and people who don't might provide some insight or understanding into whose joints are healthier.
Sounds interesting. But what actually happens when you crack your knuckles, Neil?
Well, when you stretch or bend your finger to pop the knuckle, you're making the bones of the joint pull apart, like this.
Ooh! Please don't do it again.
Well, it stretches the space around the joint and surrounding fluid and causes a decrease in pressure. As a result, gas dissolved in the fluid becomes less soluble or less able to be dissolved, leading to the formation of bubbles. Now, when you stretch the joint far enough, these bubbles burst, producing the pop sound.
Ouch. Excellent. Well, thanks for the biology demonstration there, Neil.
Anytime, Rob. Now, let's hear from the professor again about the medical value of research into knuckle cracking.
When our engineering colleagues do this between two flat surfaces, say of ceramic or porcelain, when they do this and they pull them apart quickly and there's a little bit of fluid in between, they can use electron microscopy to see there's been tremendous damage to the surfaces of the joints. But for some reason, we don't see that in the human joint. There's something that makes it very resilient.
Interesting stuff. So, scientists have performed experiments to imitate what happens in a human joint when you crack your knuckles. And when you quickly pull apart a pair of ceramic or clay tiles with fluid between them, it causes a lot of damage to the surface of the tiles.
So why don't human joints get damaged as well?
Well, the scientists don't actually know. They can see the damage to the tiles using a special electron microscope. That's a very powerful microscope. But it's not clear what makes the human joint so resilient to damage. And resilient in this context means returning to its original shape after being stretched or bent.
Right, but with further research, scientists may be able to find out and then use this information to help people with joint problems.
Or they could create synthetic or man-made materials which can withstand wear and tear better than current ones. Withstand means not be damaged by something, and wear and tear means damage as a result of ordinary use.
Can we have the answer to today's quiz question now, please, Rob?
Yes, of course. So, which type of joint can you crack? Is it A, fibrous, B, cartilaginous, or C, synovial?
And I said C, synovial.
Ah, you are quite clever, actually, because you are right.
Aha.
Or was it just a good guess?
It was a good guess.
Ah, well done. And synovial is the name for the fluid that surrounds this type of joint.
OK, so can we hear the words we learned today again?
Of course. We heard make your flesh creep, arthritis, an old wives' tale, rehabilitation, MRI, which means magnetic resonance imaging, insight, soluble, ceramic, resilient, synthetic, withstand, wear and tear.
Well, that's the end of today's 6 Minute English. We thought it was a cracking show. Please join us again soon. Goodbye.
Bye. Go on then, Neil, one more time.
Here we go. Feels great.
Horrible.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English. I'm Rob.
And I'm Neil. Hello.
Hi there, Neil. Now, hardly a day goes by without hearing someone talking about some aspect of our bodies. Do you know what I mean, Neil?
Ah, yes, Rob. Almost every part of our anatomy seems to be the subject of endless debate. It could be our stomachs and what we eat. It could be our posture and how we stand. It could be our skin and how we should look after it.
Oh, yeah, I know. It gets very tedious. That means boring. So I don't really take any notice, as you can see.
Yeah.
But there's one part of our body you don't hear much about, and that is the chin.
The chin? You mean the small bit of bone under the mouth? It's not the most interesting part, is it, Rob? I mean, it doesn't do anything, does it? I must admit, I've never even thought about it. What's it for, anyway?
Well, some people think it's very useful for folding up large sheets and towels. You know, you hold one end under your chin like that with it.
Come on now, Rob. You're not being serious.
Of course not. But seriously, the more you think about it, the more interesting the chin becomes.
You've still got to convince me, Rob. A chin is just a chin. That's all there is to it.
Not so fast, Neil. The chin may turn out to be a more important part of the body than you think. But before we get into that, let's turn to the quiz. Chin up, Neil.
Ah, a good phrase. It means stay positive and optimistic.
OK, well, how optimistic are you about getting this question right? How long ago do you think humans developed chins? Was it A, 150,000 years ago, B, 2 million years ago, or C, 5 million years ago?
I have no idea. They all sound far-fetched to me. Far-fetched means something is difficult to believe. But I think I'll go for 2 million years ago.
B, OK. Well, we'll find out if you're right or wrong later on. But the first thing to say is that humans are the only animals to have developed a chin. Let's listen to Dr. James Pampush from the University of Florida. What word does he use to mean it sticks out?
Humans are the only animal to have a chin. And by that I mean you have this bony projection underneath your teeth that sticks out past your teeth on the lower portion of your jaw. And it's such an unusual feature that in a way it sort of helps define what it means to be human.
So he used the word projection, which means something that sticks out from the main surface.
And the word jaw is used to describe the lower part of the face, which the chin is part of. So we know exactly what the chin is, but why did it develop?
Now, from what I understand, Rob, it has a lot to do with when humans started to cook their food. So the food they ate became much softer, and therefore our ancestors, that's the people related to us from a long time ago, they didn't need powerful jaws or sharp teeth anymore. And strangely, that made the jaw drop and produce that odd piece of bone we know as the chin.
But sometime later, the chin became associated with sexual attraction in men. Males with prominent, that means easy to see, jaws were supposed to be attractive to women. And men with small chins were thought to be unattractive or weak people. They were even called chinless wonders sometimes.
Chinless wonder, an interesting phrase. So let's have a look at yours then, Rob. Are you a chinless wonder?
Have a look.
It looks pretty normal to me. How about mine?
Well, Neil, your chin is rather pointed, if you don't mind me saying.
Okay.
But I'm not sure what that means, to be honest. So let's move swiftly on. Let's hear what Dr. Pampush has to say about this. He uses a word that means this theory is likely to be true.
It seems plausible to me that chins emerged as some kind of a feature and then later were selected on to be sex ornaments, but not the presence of a chin, but rather the shape of the chin being some kind of marker for sexual identity.
The word he used was plausible, meaning something that is acceptable or believable.
The word chin has also given us some interesting expressions. A double chin, for example, describes loose skin hanging beneath the chin, which makes people look like they've got two chins. It's something that people don't like and often try to get rid of.
And then there's the verb to chinwag. That means to talk a lot or to chat in a relaxed way with friends. But chinwag tends to be a conversation about things that aren't very important. But our conversation about chins is very important.
I guess so, Neil. OK. So how about the answer to that question I asked you earlier? I asked, how long ago did humans develop chins? Was it A, 150,000 years ago, B, 2 million years ago, or C, 5 million years ago?
And I said 2 million years ago.
Ah, you know your chins? You were right.
Brilliant.
Well done. Chins really have been around for a long time. Now, before we go, it's time to remind ourselves of some of the vocabulary that we've heard today. Neil.
Tedious. Chin up. Far-fetched. Projection. Jaw. Ancestors. Prominent. Chinless wonder. Plausible. Double chin. Chinwag.
Thanks, Neil. Well, that brings us to the end of today's 6 Minute English. We hope you enjoyed the programme. You can hear plenty more on our website at bbclearningenglish.com. Please join us again soon. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello and welcome to 6 Minute English, the program where we bring you an interesting topic and 6 items of vocabulary. I'm Dan, and today we're talking about...
Sighing. I'm Catherine.
Now, was that a real sigh or just one to demonstrate the meaning?
That one was just for educational purposes, of course, Dan.
We'll be looking at why we sigh and learn how sighing keeps us alive.
Yes, very interesting. And it's not just humans that sigh, is it, Dan?
Indeed, most mammals sigh. And that brings me to today's question. How many times does a mouse sigh in an hour on average? Is it A, twice, B, 10 times, or C, 40 times?
I'm going to say the poor little thing will sigh about 40 times an hour.
OK, let's find out if you're right later on in the programme. Now, what is a sigh exactly?
Let's hear from Dr. Lynn Barker, a cognitive neuroscientist from Sheffield Hallam University in the UK.
It's a typically cardiorespiratory kind of resetting mechanism, and most mammals will engage in sighing of some kind. Because people who don't sigh would eventually die. It is a survival mechanism.
So, sighing keeps us alive.
Dr. Barker called it a survival mechanism. To survive means to continue living, especially in difficult circumstances. A mechanism here means a system of behaviour.
So, a survival mechanism is something the body does automatically in order to survive. But, Dan, why is sighing a survival mechanism?
It's because sighing can reset the lungs. To reset is to return something to its original settings. We often use this verb when talking about technology. You can reset a computer or a phone.
Okay, that's fine. But how does a sigh reset the lungs?
Well, scientists from UCLA, that's the University of California, Los Angeles, found that a sigh is a special kind of very deep breath that keeps the tiny sacs of air in our lungs, called alveoli, working properly.
And without sighing, these alveoli would collapse and we would die. We need the alveoli to transfer oxygen from our lungs to our blood.
Thankfully, we don't have to think about this need to reset our lungs. Sighing is in fact a reflex.
Boo! There, you jumped, and that was a fabulous reflex, Dan. It's something our bodies do without thinking, something you do unconsciously or automatically.
I meant, like a man. Thank you for that, Catherine.
You're welcome.
Do you sigh a lot?
Well, I sigh when I'm tired, and I sigh when I'm relieved. I breathe a sigh of relief.
To breathe a sigh of relief. That's a great expression. It means what you think it means. To sigh when you feel good that something bad has not happened. But it's often used metaphorically. It relates more to the feeling of relief than the act of sighing.
That's right. Now, I breathed a sigh of relief when I found my mobile phone the other day. I thought I'd lost it. It was new. I was so pleased when I found it. What about you, Dan?
I tend to sigh to show frustration and sometimes resignation.
Now, frustration is what we feel when things aren't going well, when things are annoying us and they don't work, when things are frustrating.
And resignation is what we feel when we finally accept that something bad has happened that we can't change. We feel resigned to something.
So, relief, resignation, frustration, resetting our lungs. It sounds like we humans never stop sighing.
Well, actually, we humans sigh on average 12 times an hour. But what about mice?
Well, I said I reckon they sigh about 40 times an hour.
Well, in fact, it is 40 times an hour. The hearts of mice beat faster, so they need to regulate their lungs more than humans.
Let's review today's vocabulary.
We had the phrase survival mechanism, something we do without thinking that keeps us alive.
We often use this phrase and the related phrase defence mechanism when talking about what people do to cope with difficulties in life.
Next, we had reset. You can reset a computer or a machine to make it work again. This usually means switching it off and on again.
And you can reset a password. This is a little bit different. It means to set or choose a new password.
We also had the word reflex. This is a physical action or reaction that you can't control. For example, Catherine?
Yes, Dan?
There! You closed your eyes. Another reflex.
And we had to breathe a sigh of relief, which means to feel better after something bad doesn't happen. I breathed a sigh of relief when my friend recovered from her illness.
But we sigh for other reasons too. Two useful sighing words were frustration and resignation.
Frustration is the state of being frustrated. We can say something is frustrating. It's frustrating when the boss doesn't listen to me.
But let's say you move beyond feeling frustrated and start feeling resigned.
Yeah, and that would be when I finally accept the boss will never listen to me. And that's when I'll resign.
To resign also means to voluntarily leave a job. Please, Catherine, tell me that's just another vocabulary example.
Of course it is, Dan. I love my job.
Phew.
I only ever sigh about, 12 times an hour?
Which is perfectly average. And that's it for today's 6-Minute English. Please join us again soon.
And we're on social media too. Make sure to find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
6-Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.
Hello, I'm Rob. Welcome to 6-Minute English. With me today is Finn. Hello, Finn.
Hi, Rob.
In this programme, we're going to be talking about blood.
Oh, yes, blood. Did I ever tell you, Rob, that, I really hate the sight of blood?
Oh.
And I've even been known to faint. Now, that's to lose consciousness at the sight of a needle.
Oh dear. Come on,
true.
Finn. I think you've got a lot to learn.
Maybe.
You wouldn't be here without it, you know. It's a fascinating topic. All sorts of discoveries are being made these days which could change medical science forever.
Yes, well, you are right, of course. Blood was even thought to relate to human character. People were hot-blooded. That meant quick to anger, or cold-blooded, which meant lacking in passion.
There were all the myths about vampires when young blood was thought to revitalise older people. And there's a dreadful story that a Hungarian countess had hundreds of young women killed so she could bathe in their blood and stay youthful looking.
Right, okay. And in Roman times, if a young gladiator died in battle, people used to drink his blood because they thought it would keep them healthy.
For 3,000 years, people have been cut or given leeches to let out the blood because they thought that would make people better. Incredibly, it carried on until the 19th century, but it actually made people worse or even killed them.
Right, okay, so I won't be doing that today.
No, okay. Instead, how about answering a question all about blood, Finn?
Go on then.
If you laid out all the blood vessels in an adult body, end to end, how long would they be? Would they be A, 30,000 miles, B, 100,000 miles, or C, 200,000 miles long?
Well, let's say 100,000 miles. That's B.
OK, well, we'll see if you've got the right answer at the end of the programme. OK, well, let's talk more about blood now. We've heard about blood in history, but Finn, did you know that today beauticians are running businesses in which people pay to have their blood extracted and then injected into their face?
Yeah, I have heard about this. Yeah, it's thought to rejuvenate. That means to give new life to their skin. Michael Mosley has done just that to his face in this experiment. He's a doctor and presenter with the BBC. Let's listen to him talking about it. He uses an expression that means go faster. Can you tell me what it is?
Sometimes called the vampire facelift, PRP, platelet-rich plasma therapy, claims to accelerate healing and reverse the signs of aging. First, my blood is treated to make a concentrated solution of platelets in plasma. Next, this is injected directly into my face.
Ooh, ouch. And the word he used was accelerate. Now that means to make faster.
And he said they treated his blood. This means changed or transformed it.
Well, today, of course, controlled blood transfusion is a completely normal medical practice that saves countless lives. And blood donors, the people who give their blood, are an important part of healthcare.
Yes, Finn, but there's all sorts of other amazing things that blood can do. If we're running at altitude, that's high up, the limbs get tired because there's not enough oxygen. The blood then starts creating new red cells and pours them into the system. That's why athletes often train in the mountains.
Altitude training, isn't it? And apparently the different types of food you eat can have an immediate effect on your blood, or rather the element of blood called plasma. So if you eat a cholesterol-high breakfast, for example, very soon after that you can see the fat in the blood.
Nice. Ideas about how blood moves around your body have changed a lot over the years too. The Romans thought blood flowed one way and came out of our feet and hands and was then burnt away. But William Harvey in the 17th century found that blood circulated via veins and arteries. These are the tubes in our body where blood is carried around.
And let's not forget clotting. That's when the blood hardens. If our blood didn't clot when we cut ourselves, we'd be dead within minutes. It is really fascinating, isn't it? And we're just beginning to understand stem cells. Now, these are also in the blood and are used to repair organs in the body.
Modern science is really helping us to understand blood properly for the first time and showing us the way forward.
Now, Rob, before my blood boils, could you let me know the answer to the quiz question, please?
Yes, so I asked you, if you laid out all the blood vessels in an adult body end to end, how long would they be? 30,000 miles, 100,000 miles, or 200,000 miles?
Ooh, well, I said 100,000 miles.
Wow, and you know your blood vessels because you got that question right.
Well, I counted them earlier, yes. I measured it all.
Good. And how do you feel about blood now?
Well, I'm probably a bit scared of it still, but now that I know all of these wonderful things that it does, I really get why it's so important.
Great.
Yeah.
So let's remind ourselves of some of the words we've said today, Finn.
Here we are. Faint. Rejuvenate. Transfusion. Cholesterol high. Veins and arteries. Clotting. Accelerate. And treated.
Thank you. Well, that's it for today. Please visit bbclearningenglish.com to find more 6-Minute English programmes. Until next time, goodbye.
Goodbye.
6 Minute English.
From BBC Learning English.